Awesome. Hey, so welcome everyone in attendance, and thank you for joining us. For those of you who don't know, my name is Nick Emerson, and I'm a local real estate broker here with Keller Williams and the Emerson Group. And I'm excited to be joined today by Natalie Barrantes, who's the owner and operator of Senior Living Services. So thank you, Natalie, for carving out some time today to help educate us about the senior living and care landscape. Definitely an important service, and the support you bring to this table is immense. So
Thank you.
I have to say, when we first connected and I learned more about your business and service, I immediately wanted people to be aware of it because it's something that's no charge to the client,
Mhm.
and they'll without question themselves or family members will save time, stress, and money.
Absolutely.
So without further ado, let's get started, and I'll pass the mic over to Natalie.
Oh, thank you, Nick. I really appreciate this opportunity. Nick and I were talking about this, and I often say this that I wish I had this opportunity before it actually became a need. Because when you have to make a decision that's hasty, it's often also costly. So I really appreciate, Nick, that you're giving me this platform and that you're giving your audience this opportunity because, unlike shopping for your first home, this isn't necessarily a fun topic, but it's a necessity and it's something that we all will be confronted with if we have the privilege to even age well into our old age, right? So I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
Okay, let's do this. So, as Nick had already mentioned, my name is Natalie Barrantes. I founded Senior Living Services almost 6 years ago. I've been doing placements in California for well over 13 years. And I like to explain my services as such that I help seniors and their families navigate the aging process by tailoring a plan that matches your geographical, your financial, and your personal care needs. There are so many communities and so many options, and we're all individuals, and no aging process is alike. So, I'd like to help you navigate and understand what options are most appropriate for you. I also like to compare my service very much to what a buyer's agent is because my services are free since I'm reimbursed by the communities and partners that I refer to. And that referral fee comes out of their marketing budget. So there are never any hidden costs. You will never be charged more because you use my services. So I just like to really dive in and help you prepare for the future and help educate you on the choices you have. So a lot of people think that retirement living is all the same when it really isn't. Independent living communities are properties that operate much like a standing cruise ship. If you've ever taken a cruise, there are meals and activities going on throughout the day. When you leave your room, housekeeping steps in, you've got fresh towels, your bed is made. Those are the type of amenities that an independent living community is going to offer you. But the biggest distinction between an independent community and an assisted or memory care is the way they hold a license in the state of California. So in California, to be an independent living community, which operates very much like a hotel, does not require a license. It only has age restrictions, typically 55 years or older. When we step into an assisted living community or even a memory care community, under the state of California, you must have an RCFE license, which stands for Residential Care Facility for the Elderly. The difference between assisted living and memory care is that assisted living is a free environment. Seniors can still have their vehicles, but also age through all the stages of life, even into end of life care. Memory care, however, is a secured environment where if seniors do have the tendency to elope because they're experiencing cognitive delay or decline, they have to be in a memory care unit because the state of California imposes that you have a higher care ratio to staff. And so really those are the three main breakdowns. It gets a little confusing because the assisted livings and the memory cares and even the boarding cares, the residential care homes, whether you care for one individual or 500, it's all under the same umbrella. It's all under the same license.
And Natalie, to give people a little bit of context of the landscape, like roughly how many options are available for independent living, assisted living, memory care, let's just say within San Diego County or within California as a whole?
That is a great question. I would say that there are literally thousands. If we're talking about just San Diego County, you're going to find fewer independent living options than you are going to find assisted livings, because the assisted living communities are not just these large buildings like you might have heard of, big names like Sunrise or Brookdale. They could also be inconspicuous homes that are residential houses that are only caring for 1 to 6 individual. So there are virtually thousands of options, and each one so unique because of either the price tag or the neighborhood.
And that's part of some of your service, right? Is to make sure that you're helping to do kind of a consultation approach of what are your wants, what are your needs, and then taking that information into consideration and articulating what communities or options make most sense for them, which I'm sure is
Yes.
a lot of time spent on someone else's behalf that doesn't know where to start or where to look or what their options are.
Absolutely. And not only that, sometimes we're also balancing multiple children and their opinions, right? And geographically, it's like trying to find out, well, where's the greatest compromise lie? And because there are hundreds and thousands of these communities and I hold agreements with so many of them, I could certainly cut down your research time.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Saving time. We all appreciate that.
Yes, yes. So let's talk about, what does something like this cost? This can also be quite ambiguous because no two people are alike. When we're talking about an independent option, the one that I was saying that's like a standing cruise ship that's not licensed by California, well, that community is going to offer your basic amenities like your 3 meals a day, your weekly housekeeping, socialization, and some transportation. Typically, the price begins at about 2,800 and certainly can go up from that. Just like buying real estate or looking for a home in a particular neighborhood, all of those aspects influence the cost. So there are several floor plans to choose from. Some of them even have penthouses that are like 2,000 square feet to 200 square foot studios and everything in between. So that's why the cost can quite range. But in San Diego, I'd say that our beginning options start at about $2,800. When we move into assisted living, which again is a licensed environment, that gets a little bit more costly because now we have 24/7 trained caregivers on staff. I'd say that the beginning rate is about $4,500, and then there is a separate cost. So that $4,500 is going to cover your room and board, but then there are care charges that are individually tailored to the activities of daily life that you require support in. All communities do it differently, but just to make this simple, I like to tell people the care charges are going to be between $500 and $2,000. So you take that range and you add it to your base rate of $4,500 to give you a ballpark figure of what it might be. Then memory care. And unfortunately, memory care is going to be our most expensive option. The reason for this is the state of California requires a higher ratio of caregivers to the residents. In San Diego, we typically start at about 5,700. And again, just like assisted living, your care needs will be added on to that base rate. And there's a couple other factors. Are you okay sharing a room? Or do you prefer a private room? That will also influence your cost.
Perfect. And I did want to add that if there are any questions, that we are going to make sure to reserve some time afterwards so that we can answer any questions you have from a specific standpoint to your situation. Natalie would be happy to address those after the call or with a scheduled appointment over the phone.
Absolutely. So you're probably experiencing some sticker shock, right? You're thinking to yourself, how am I going to pay for this? This is astronomical. But you know what? When you think about having care staff available to you 24/7 and preventing any type of falls and reducing risks, it may actually add longevity and a more pleasurable manner of aging because you're in a safe, secured environment. Now, I really want to make this distinction between, well, what does health insurance cover? Because I can't tell you how often I have this conversation. And I hate being the bearer of bad news, but time after time, seniors and their families will say to me, well, Medicare is going to cover the cost, right? The answer is no. Medicare is a health insurance, not to be confused with insurance that covers the cost of living. So Medicare is going to cover your hospital stay, and then if you need to rehab after, for example, you break a hip, and then you need to go to rehab. Everybody with Medicare is given up to 100 days stay in a nursing home to recover. But then after that, it's your financial responsibility to look for long-term care. If you're fortunate enough to have Medi-Cal, which is for lower income Americans, and in California, we call it Medi-Cal, but nationally it's recognized as Medicaid, there are some programs that will actually pay the cost of assisted living if you are on Medicaid. Now, so how else can you finance your retirement? Through your private pay. So basically it's the savings, the equity of your home, your insurance, your income, everything that you've saved throughout your life can be applied to cover the cost of your aging process. If you served in the military and you are VA, there is something called the VA and attendance benefit. I find this benefit to be very interesting, and it's not spoken about often enough. If you want more information, just call me because that gets a little more complicated, and I'd like to tell you there's one particular form that you will absolutely need if you're going to cover it. But if you are fortunate, it will cover you and your spouse, and if the veteran passes away, the benefits will still transfer to the surviving spouse, and it's roughly about $2,000 to $2,800 to cover the cost of your assisted living. So moving on to another insurance benefit is long-term care insurance. Long-term care insurance is something that your parents or grandparents would have purchased in their younger years. As you get older, if you want to purchase a long-term care insurance, it could be very expensive. And the only caveat I'd like to share with your long-term care insurance, if you do have it or your parents have this, please find out what the terms are. There's a period of time in which long-term care will not pay out. For example, some policies read between 30 and 180 days. So really dive into the fine print of your policy, but this is the time to use it. And then our next, your next opportunity is a reverse mortgage. A reverse mortgage makes sense for certain individuals that wish to age in their own home and use the equity. So this is a wonderful option. If somebody is adamant that they wish to remain in their home and bring in the services, you're allowed to use that equity into your home. However, if you are hospitalized and you leave the home, there are some regulations about how long you're allowed to be outside of the home. So just keep that in mind.
And for anyone who is considering a reverse mortgage, we have a reverse mortgage specialist that we work with that we'd be happy to follow up and provide information for as well.
So senior living loans. These are loans that can be secured for pay for a long-term care service. They're loans that they're going to operate very much like a credit card. Sometimes this is very useful to the collective family if everybody wants to participate in the cost of their loved one aging. And then long-term benefit plans. Many people don't know that all those insurance plans that you've been paying on actually may have a cash value and they could be converted. I'll share with you a live example. I personally have a whole life insurance policy with a long-term care rider attached to it. So while the policy is building up cash, it can also be used to cover my long-term care needs. So we've reached the tip of our iceberg, and there are so many nuances in senior living and long-term that can be overwhelming and very complicated, especially when you're in a marriage and you have a partnership, and in that partnership, your partner requires something very different than you. things get a little complicated. And this is where I believe that I can truly save you a lot of time. Prior to COVID, I would have the privilege of personally escorting you to view these communities. I would help, and I still will continue to help negotiate your agreements once you make a choice. But as a result of COVID, we're only offering virtual tours, which may be even better for your time, especially if you want to make this a group effort amongst your family. So, in some ways, it's gone a little bit easier. We would have a conversation. I'll send you a link, and then you'll be able to virtually tour any community you want in California from the comfort of your own home. I really am so honored to have this opportunity. It is my life's purpose to help people navigate the aging process. And I really hope to have the opportunity to connect with all of you. And I just remind everyone to please take care of each other, because after all, we all want to be old people someday.
Awesome. Well, thanks for giving us a really good understanding and overview, right? Looking at all the information and what's available to people, especially all the resources that you can help save time, right, and stress and anxiety about. But with that being said, I did want to open it up and just qualify if there was any questions that anyone had in particular that might be able to add value, or maybe other people might have questions about. So you do have an option to participate in the chat box. There's also a question and answer section as well. So if you do have anything in particular that you want to allow for, I will open it up so that anyone can talk and contribute to if there is a specific question. Is there anything that someone had a particular question about, or in general that they wanted to add to the conversation at this point?
And I know that these conversations sometimes feel like they want privacy, so feel free to call me independently.
Absolutely. And if there is anything in particular that you have been looking for as far as information, resources, or just questions that we did not go over or cover today, I want to make sure that we do get those questions answered for you. As far as Janice's, her question was, are we talking about helping set up a home for seniors? So, or receiving home services?
It's a good question. So my intention is always to create a plan that is tailored to you reaching whatever your aging goals are. And there is also a home care of availability. And I apologize, I actually didn't go into the specifics about that. I also work with home care agencies, so we can make arrangements to send a caregiver out to your home. The benefit of this option is that you could really manage your own time schedules and budgets. On average, a home caregiver an agency is going to supply caregivers that are licensed and bonded, averaging $31 an hour. Most of them are going to require a 3 to 4 hour work period. And you can see that if you only require a few hours of a week, this could be a huge advantage. However, if you require 24/7 care, home care can actually be your most expensive option. And if you are interested in talking about how to set up your own RCFE, I also have an administrator's license. So I have the same license you need whether you're going to open up a residential board and care of one individual or have one of those standing cruise ships that we were talking about. You still need the same license. You can go to the Department of Health and type in RCFE administrators certification, and then you'll be able to see all the information if you'd like to create your own board and care.
Perfect. And then we had a question from Portia. If I was looking at selling my property to fund my senior care, would you recommend reaching out to yourself or an agent first, or what do you recommend the order of conversation be?
Well, I actually had a scenario that I worked in conjunction with a realtor with Keller Williams, and what we had done is there was a couple, and the gentleman had to be placed first. And when we came to speak to the wife, I wanted to present all the options because the first question is, well, how are we going to finance this? And so I wanted to bring a realtor with me that can help provide comps so that when she walked away from the conversation, she had a lot of things to reflect on. Her husband was a VA member, the house was paid off, they had some insurance policies. There was a lot of things to organize and to consider. But I feel so blessed that she took all that information, shared it with her adult children, because unfortunately, 6 months after that, she had a brain aneurysm. She survived it, but she had time to talk to her adult children and say, you know what? I met this lovely lady. She's a realtor. She told me that my home might be worth this. And when it came time, the adult daughter calls me and says, my mother is in the hospital. I'll need you to help place her. And now we're ready to sell. Can you help me do that quickly? And it was such an advantage that we were able to have this conversation, educate her, and the blessing that she shared this information with her family. So her family knew what she wanted. She didn't want to sell her house immediately after placing her husband because she had never lived alone her entire life. She had that joy, she had that experience, but unfortunately, 6 months later, life took a turn for her.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for answering that. And also, we had a question about just reconfirming the website for the resource here in the chat box, the RCFE boarding care. Can you reconfirm what the?
Sure. It's the acronym RCFE stands for Residential Care Facility for the Elderly.
Perfect.
And if you go to the Department of Health, or maybe you type ca.gov and type in those words, you'll be able to see the certification process, which is the first step before you can actually establish your own boarding care in a residential home.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Natalie, for providing us with the education and information so that we can make smart decisions and also have you as a resource. And thank you for everyone in attendance. I trust that you took value from this call, and I wish you all a wonderful rest of the week. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye. Take care of each other.